All right, good. So let's talk about living benefits, how they work. As I said earlier, the concept of life insurance itself as a death benefit is a selfless gesture. You're doing it to protect your family. You're doing it to protect your kids, your spouse, your this, right? It's because you're no longer here. So you're going to come across people that are either selfish minded and they don't want to leave behind money for whatever reason, or people that just quite frankly don't believe it. And it's all cultural. Like I said earlier, the Mexican community, if they grew up in Mexico, they faced, the lack of trust over the government and the banks because they were able to do whatever they wanted. So they don't trust big companies. The Southern American communities, the Caribbean community, you deal with a lot of machismo where men don't want to leave money behind because they're, some crazy notion that their spouses, their wives are just going to use that money with their new lovers. I mean, you cannot impose your opinions onto them. So you have to find a way to find a solution based on their opinions. You never want to attack somebody based on your opinions. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. When my son is now 10. So this was about 10 years ago. My first son, I'm excited about being a father. To me, insurance is like, woof, you know what I mean? Like it hit me, you know what I mean? Like I've got a bloodline now that I'm leaving behind. My son has my last name. My blood's running through his veins. He's got my not only my last name, but he's got my first name. I mean, my mindset was what? Insurance is important, right? And I'm very new to this industry. I'm only maybe a couple years in, and I haven't really gotten my feet wet to the level that I am now. And I go meet with this client. He's a 34-year-old Cuban guy. I'll never forget it. 34-year-old Cuban guy who runs a property and casualty insurance agency with another business partner. Property and casualty insurance, guys, is car insurance, auto insurance, liability insurance, and stuff like that, right? So he's running this business, and he's making good money. He's clearing a good $250,000 a year. He's probably he had $500,000 saved in investments, so he's doing well. And we start having a conversation about insurance because we start talking about kids, and he's got a 1-year-old or something like that. And I start to impose my opinions. Oh my God, as a father, man, it was just important to me to make sure I have insurance protection because, what, heaven forbid something happened and that. And I start talking to him about a permanent insurance policy. But I'm talking about the permanent insurance in the terms of insurance protection. I'm not really focusing as much attention on the accumulation of cash, the tax-free benefits, the liquidity. I'm not looking at it as an asset for him while he's alive. I'm just talking about the insurance side of it. And he decides not to buy. Now, mind you, this was a client that wanted to purchase $10,000 a year of this. That's a 10,000 point case, guys. I mean, you look at that, that's big numbers. Even as a field associate, that's a $5,000 commission. You can imagine how big that meeting was. And he says this to me. He says, Tony, I came into this country with $5 to my name. $5. Mind you, guys, he came taking the 90-mile float. Like he was a rafter from Cuba. Came with $5 in his hands, he said. And out of those $5 and no support from family, no nothing, I was able to make a business that now supports me and my family. I've got $500,000 in the bank invested. He says, look, if I leave my son with $10, he has twice the head start. That's literally what he said to me. And I couldn't argue it, right? But I lost the deal. I lost the case. That was his opinion. And I went back, I talked to my coaches, I talked to my mentors the same way you guys come and talk to me, and they said, and the lesson that they gave me is the lesson I'm giving you guys right now. Do not ever impose your opinion, your belief system on someone, because they have a reason for believing what they do, and it's not your job to change their mind. You're not running a self-help, mental toughness, emotional awareness business. You're running a financial firm, and my job is to get as many people covered and protected by whatever means necessary, as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, right? I'm never going to recommend something that I wouldn't recommend my family. I'll tell you that right now. I have no problem telling a 50 or a 60-year-old, hey, I don't recommend this. I don't have a problem telling a 20, 30-year-old, I don't recommend this because of this, because everybody has different objectives. But I personally have to be objective about their value system over insurance. So what did I do? I came back the next year to the same client, a little bit more experience, a little bit more seasoning. I took the lesson of the loss. I didn't look at it as a loss. I looked at it as a lesson. It was a lesson that to this day, I get reminded about all the time. I get reminded about it. And it's a lesson that has paid me so much money because it reminds me to be objective. And I can only imagine how many cases I have been able to close based on their value system and not mine because of that lesson that I learned. So I came back the next year and I said, man, listen, I want to talk to you about a product line that we have that I think would interest you. He says, okay, what's up? I'll give you another shot. I said, listen, what if I could show you a product that you can put your money into that builds cash? It's a product that is creditor protected, so your business can't, if your business gets sued, this money can't be attacked. So you can take money out of your business and put it in here, and you're gonna know that while the money's in here in this safe bubble, it's protected against lawsuits, against threats, against anything like that. What if I told you that you could tap into that money while you're still in your working years if you want to reinvest into other properties or other business ventures? And what if I told you you were going to earn about 6%? And I'll throw another one your way, man. What if it's tax-free? What if that money in there is tax-free? He says, my goodness, I'd be 100% interested in that. I want that. I don't have anything like that. I keep... I get a crap ton of tax benefits from my business, but my business is fully exposed to the threat of lawsuit, right? What are you talking about? And I go, how much can you put in? He says, well, I could put $10,000 into something like that on a yearly basis, no problem. And that's exactly what he did. He put $10,000 a year into that product. Do you know what I sold him? I sold him the exact same thing I was recommending to him the year before. I sold him the same thing. It was a permanent insurance policy. It was like an IUL. It was a Ferrari. Same exact product. But I positioned it to his objectives. I positioned it to what he's looking for. He didn't care about the insurance. He didn't care about the death benefit. He cared about the accumulation. He cared about the money. He cared about he cared about what's called WIFM. You might know what WIFM is? Anybody know the acronym WIFM? W-I-F-M? W-I-I-F-M. It's actually W-I-I-F-M. You hear that? WIFM. It's what's in it for me. What's in it for me? You want me to put money in there? What's in it for me? That was the biggest lesson that's one of the biggest lessons I learned about in this industry. It also taught me to ask more questions in the beginning before I give my opinion. It taught me to ask more questions before I give my recommendation. If you guys notice, sometimes you'll call me up, hey, I got a 30-year-old, he wants to put money into an IUL. What do you recommend? And I'm like, well, wait, how long does he want to put it in? What dollar amount does he want to put in? What's the goal? Is he cash sensitive? Is he insurance sensitive? Does he want a little bit of both? Like, tell me what his objectives are before we give him a recommendation. Because I won't start to give my presentation or impose my opinion until I know enough about you. So let's talk today about living benefits. Now, mind you, that case that I just talked to you about, I was working for a captive company, which meant I can only sell them. I can only sell one company. We've got 30-something companies. This is when I was very new. I can only sell one company only, right? Let me see what's going on here. Hang on a second. Hang on. There we go. Where you at? Sorry, my new agent is still thinking Central Time, so he thought it was 10 o'clock his time, not 10 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm gonna show him some grace. All right, so the company that I was with before did not offer living benefits. So I couldn't necessarily explain that to him because I didn't have that as a tool. I'm going to talk to you today about living benefits because it is a selfless purchase. And the story that I want you guys to learn is the story of my father. Remember what brought me into this industry? It wasn't a death benefit, it was a living benefit. It was not a death benefit, it was a living benefit that brought me into this industry. Remember my dad in 2005, the day after we did my sister's Sweet 15 pictures, the very next day, it was a Monday, he's driving home from work. He's on a 2-lane road. It had just finished raining, so the roads were a little bit wet, right? What ends up happening? A truck coming opposite his direction, a garbage truck, a waste management truck, turns on its side. It hydroplanes and turns on its side on a 2-lane road. So when there's a 2-lane road and the truck turns on its side, where can you go? You got nowhere to go. You go left, you're hitting him. You go right, you're hitting him. So what happens is, he gets into a head-on collision with this truck. He was driving a 1993 Nissan Sentra. And it wasn't until 1994 that they put airbags in those cars. And he get into a head-on collision with this truck. What do you think happened? My dad got into a massive car accident. So think about your normal reaction time, right? What's the first thing you're going to do if you're about to get into a head-on collision with your car? You're going to slam on your brakes. That's your natural instinct, right? So my dad slams on his brakes. He's hyperextending his foot because he's trying desperately to stop the car and move out of the way. And he gets on impact. Boom. On impact, the motor of my dad's car's got nowhere to go but into the car. But my dad's leg is hyperextended. So what do you think happens? His foot gets crushed in 2 inches. 2 inches, my dad's foot got crushed in. He broke his ankle, he broke his knee, and he broke his hip all at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. He has a scar that runs from his nose to the side, down his lip, down the bottom jaw this way. Because on impact, the center of the steering wheel, which is the part that he hit, that cracked him all through here. All right? He took a life flight. If you guys don't know what a life flight is, it's a helicopter flight. Just so you know, it's a 6-figure flight for like 20 minutes of flying. Right? They took a life flight from Southwest Florida, Naples, Florida, which is the West Coast, all the way to Jackson Memorial in Miami because they couldn't find a doctor in the West Coast that could handle accidents and trauma like that. On the way of him flying over there, he's sitting in a stretcher and he's got this oxygen mask on, but his cuts are so big that he's bleeding through and he can't breathe. He's trying to breathe in the oxygen, but he's drowning on his own blood. He ends up having to lift up his mask, and he took his face and moved it to the side because it was cut. So when they get him to Jackson Memorial, they still can't find a doctor willing to touch him. They're all afraid. It's too much liability. It's too much this. It's too much that. None of them have, the kind of extensive damage that he had. They had to find a doctor that was willing to do it. It took them 4 days to find a doctor. 4 days. You know what they did to my dad for 4 days? They put water weights on his ankles. Does anybody know why they would put water weights on my dad's ankles for 4 days while he's waiting for a surgeon? Anybody know? Because they don't want the bones to fuse. They don't want the bones to fuse the wrong way. So they've got to keep the bones that are broken separated until they find a doctor that'll actually do the surgery. So they put these water bags on his ankles to keep his bones separated, and then they dope him up on morphine. His knee fused during that 4-day period. It started fusing incorrectly. It wasn't correct. So what they have to do, they had to re-break it. I remember my dad screaming for agony when they had to re-break it before they finally found a doctor that was willing to work on my dad. My dad's got more bolts and screws and nuts all over him than anything. I was 20. Oh my God. This was 2005. So what is that? That's 15 years ago. I was 22. I was 22. I remember exactly where I was when my dad had his accident. I had just left Chili's with my college girlfriend, and my mom calls me up and says, "Hey, where are you?" I said, "Why? What's going on?" He says, "Oh, well, are you sitting down?" I'm like, "Wait, what happened?" Right? She tells me what happened in my dad's accident. I remember that when I hung up the phone, I was on the floor. My legs collapsed when I heard about my dad's accident. Gathered my bearings. My mom is on her way to Jackson Memorial Hospital. My brother and sister are itty bitty. They're tiny. I had to drive from Tampa to Naples to go pick up my brother and sister. And then from there, I had to drive back. I couldn't even go to the hospital to see my dad because guess what? Somebody had to take care of my brother and sister. I'm 11 years older than my brother. So think about it. I'm 22. That means my brother is 11. My sister is 15. She's 15. This happened in May of 2005. Right? So why do I tell you this story? I'm telling you this story because I want you to learn this story. There's a thing in this industry called stories sell and facts tell. If you're a technical person and you think you want to give people facts about how this product works, the insides and outs and stuff, you're not going to motivate people. You're not going to motivate people to take action. Because believe it or not, 90% of the world is not technical. So if you're technical, you're special. In a good way, you're special because not many people think technical like that. 80% of the world is not technical. They're action. They're fall forward type of people. They are emotionally driven. So you've got to learn. Stories will sell and facts will tell. Don't tell facts, tell stories. That's why I give you the details of this story, because I want you guys to experience it like you were there. I want you to envision a picture of what that would be like. I have pictures of my dad's accidents. I have pictures of my dad, 90 pounds, sitting in a wheelchair, all bolted up left and right. I remember my family members helping me out left and right, church groups helping me out left and right. I remembered all of that. It was a year and a half of my dad's accident. And I'm the oldest of three, so I have no choice. I have no choice but to drop out of school. I have no choice but to come back, help the family. I left the girlfriend that I had. I broke up with her because she just wasn't supportive of me while I was helping my family. And it was just the right decision. And I moved back home. I moved back to Naples. I turned my dad's garage into an efficiency, which, by the way, you're not Latino in South Florida if you don't know how to make efficiencies. So it was like my rite of passage. I had to earn my stripes. But that's what I did. And I worked restaurants left and right, trying to help my family and provide and pay the bills. You know why? Because his life insurance policy said this. Are you ready? His life insurance policy said, you got to die if we're going to give you this money. And guess what? He didn't die. He had great health insurance, not knocking that. He worked for Comcast. He still works for Comcast now. So he had great health insurance. So the doctor's bills were getting paid. But who the hell was paying the mortgage and the electric and the water? Who was paying all of that stuff? He had disability insurance through his employer. But just so you guys know, disability insurance is only about 40% of your pay. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's 65%. It's 65% gross. They still got to take taxes out. What my dad brought home was only about 40% of his income. So think about that for a moment. Think about all of a sudden right now, your employer gives you 60% less of your income. Could you support yourself? Could you pay your bills? Could you support your family? There's no way. There's absolutely no way. There's no way, especially middle America. Most middle Americans are paycheck to paycheck type people. So I had to step in. And not only did I have to step in and help my dad, but I also had to step in and replace my mom's income. Because guess what my mom had to become? His caregiver, his nurse. My parents live in a 3-acre property. And when you live out like that, a lot of the houses, when they build them, they put these shower heads on the sides of the houses because, people who have acreage like that tend to be farmers and, they have crops and whatever in the backyard. So what do the wives typically say? Before you come in the house, wash off, right? So that's why they have like an outside shower hose. Well, my dad would have to take showers out there because my parents' shower is a Roman tub that you got to walk into. And my mom couldn't carry my dad into that shower. So you know what my parents ended up doing? I built them a wooden ramp, a little wooden ramp that allowed my mom to wheel him out to the house and then wheel him back in. And in my dad's wheelchair, my mom would shower my dad outside. And I built like a little pseudo cover curtain type stuff so he had some privacy. But those experiences that I'm giving to you guys, you need to internalize that. Because you're going to come across a client one day that says to you, I don't need life insurance, right? Because I'm selfish and I don't want to protect my family if I'm not here. So you got to approach it from a selfless side and say, well, listen, let me ask you a question, Mr. Client. If something was to happen to you today, this afternoon, this very evening, and you didn't make it home because you didn't make it home, but you didn't die. You're now in the hospital. You're in the hospital. Listen to the way I'm telling this story because this is how I tell my clients this story. So please listen to this story. I said, what would you do if this evening, tonight, you don't make it home, but you also don't make it through heaven's gates. You didn't pass away, right? And 3 or 4 days go by, and you finally wake up to realize that you're in a hospital bed. You're in a hospital bed, and you've been in a coma for the last 3 days. Now, when you open up your eyes, there's lights everywhere. It's kind of dim. It's kind of foggy. Your eyes need to focus. When they finally focus, let me ask you a question. Who are the people you're anticipating seeing to the left and to the right of you? Watch this. Let me ask Heraldo. Heraldo, if you can unmute yourself real quick. Tell me if that scenario happened to you, once your eyes focus, who's to the left and who's to the right of you in your hospital bed?
To my right is going to be my wife.
Okay.
Then I'll be my parents.
And then your parents, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the doctor comes in and the doctor tells you that you're immobilized. You got to go through rehab. You got to go through treatment. It's a year and a half's worth of you not working, a year and a half worth of you probably having to take on medical expenses, nursing expenses. Now you're looking to the right and you see your wife. You're looking to your left, you see your parents. Do any of them have the finances to help that, to sustain you?
Probably not.
Right? Do you currently have the savings put away to be able to sustain yourself for the next year and a half of those expenses?
Not for that long, no.
So would it make sense to protect that if I could do that for 30, 40 bucks to make sure that your parents can still be your parents, your wife can still be your wife, and they can hire the best nurses to take care of you and give you the peace of mind so that all you got to do is recover and not worry about the money?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. You see the story that I just did? The story I'm giving with him is the story I give my clients. And I tell my dad's story so that they understand my dad didn't have that. My dad did not have that privilege. My dad didn't have that. I remember my dad stressing, crying sometimes in his wheelchair, not because of the therapy, but because financially he knew that we were sprung and he couldn't do nothing about it. You know what it is to be the main breadwinner for so many years, the provider, and all of a sudden you're handicapped and you got to rely on everybody? Guys, by the way, Geraldo is my cousin's wife, my cousin's husband, sorry. He's my cousin's husband. Yeah. He's out in the Alabama market. You know, his father-in-law knows very well what happened to my dad. His father-in-law is my dad's best friend.
That's the Rambo and Rambito, I remember.
That's right.
This year, Jorge told me that story. Mm-hmm. Talked about it a couple of times.
Yep.
Every time with something crazy happens, a friend of mine passed away on my birthday. He had a car accident, and I remember that day we talked about it. And then when Jolene got in touch with you, she was like, he's the son of the man that had an accident, and we talked about it like a couple of times. I know that the story is crazy.
Yeah, that story, guys, is what brought me into this industry. Because when my dad recovered, my dad went back to work, which, by the way, nobody ever recovers 100% from that. My dad's not who he was. My dad, if you talk to Jorge, he'll tell you, my dad was super, super active. We used to ride motorcycles. We used to go out boating. We used to go jet skiing. My dad's like ADHD. We would build freaking chicken coops in the backyard for my sister and my brother. We built tree houses. I mean, we were so active. My dad, he's not active like that any longer at all. And it's not because of age. It's just because physically his body didn't recover the way that it should. Mm-hmm. But it was a lesson. It brought me in the industry because what it taught me was I need to go learn about the rules of money. I need to understand how insurances work because I was in my early 20s. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to start raising a family. And guess what? I want to make sure that when that happens, if I'm the main breadwinner and something happens to me, I got to make sure my family's in a good place. I got to make sure my family's in a good place. I know it broke my dad's heart to see, you know, that we had church groups helping us out. It broke my dad's heart to see that my mom's father passed away and I gave her the money to go to the funeral in Puerto Rico, but it was only enough money for her to go and come back because, you know, we didn't have the money for her to stay longer and revisit family. I mean, it was tough. It was tough. I drove an Acura RSX. If you guys know what that is, it's a small little sports car. I put like 10 grand into that car before my dad's accident because I used to street race in Tampa. I dropped that car down. I put Lamborghini doors on that car. I mean, it was crazy. I used to take that car from Tampa to Naples, pick up my dad. I don't know how I was able to manage to get him in that car. I don't know how I was able to get his wheelchair in the hatchback of that car. And then from there, I drive him 2 hours to Jackson Memorial Hospital for his doctor's visits. And then 2 hours back to Naples, eat some dinner at my parents' house, and then drive another 3 hours back up to Tampa because that's where I was working and living the first 5 months. I mean, that's how intense. Those things I relive and relive and relive. And I had to learn to become a good storyteller because I need my clients to live it. I need my clients to realize nobody is immune to the trials and tribulations of life. And at any moment, something could essentially happen. And if that happens, are you prepared? Are you prepared? Are you prepared? Are you prepared? So that's where living benefits comes in, guys. So when you're talking insurance, learn about them. What are you trying to protect? Are you trying to protect if you're not here, or are you trying to protect if you are here but can't work? What of those two is more important to you? Because that's what I'm going to try to help protect. You're going to come across a lot of people like that, especially, I'm telling you, in the Latino community. You come across men that just, they're machistas, bro. They don't believe in insurance. They don't want to leave money behind for their wives. They're like, no, I'm not leaving money behind for her so she can spend it on her 20-year young new husband. Like, what? Now, don't get me wrong. When you build enough of a relationship with them, if you feel comfortable enough, challenge them. I've got a handful of clients that I challenge that'll tell me that. I look at the man square in the face. I go, listen, let me ask you a question. Do you want your wife to have to pick her next husband because of finances? Or do you want her to pick because he's a good guy? I just want you to understand that, because a mother's always a mother's always a mother. A mother will first be a mother before she's a wife. She will. She'll first be a mother before she's a wife. So when she's got to determine whether she's going to put food on the table, right, or not, she might get with a guy just because he's got the finances to put food on the table to support the kids, versus getting with the guy because he's a good quality man that should be the man raising your kids. Are you comfortable with that? Or do you want to give her the financial peace of mind to be able to be picky and selective as to who is the person that's going to be the father to your children? Because you're not here, bro. You expect her to stay single for the rest of her life? Come on now. Don't lie. So you can look at it two ways. You can get her insurance, worried that she's going to use it with her lover, right? That's just your own insecurity. Or you can get the insurance because you want to make sure that your wife can pick the right husband to be the right man that can take care of your kids when you're not here. That's simple as that. Simple as that. So let's talk about, let me see if I can open it up here and I'm going to share the screen. Let's talk about living benefits, because living benefits is going to be a big one for you guys. For people who, you know, they struggle with that concept of insurance, of life insurance. Let's see if I can open it up here. Where are you? Well, here it is. Where are you? Maybe our guy. Let me see this. Not this one. Sorry, guys. I thought I had it up, but I had the wrong one. Guide to living benefits. Ah, good. Here it is. Okay. Share the screen. Here's the good news. 99% of all the companies that we represent carry living benefits. Today, we're going to talk about American National's living benefits. Bam. Okay, so what exactly are living benefits? Any life insurance policy that we have, 90% of them, we bring this to the table. I'm a big believer of American National. American National, the acronym is ANICO, A-N-I-C-O. I sell a lot of that company. A-rated company, been around for over 100 years. You can get up to $1 million of coverage without having to get a medical exam done. They've got over $20 billion in assets. So when it comes to the credibility of the company, it's a strong, strong, strong company. Living benefits means you're getting money while you're alive in the event that you have a triggering event. You have to have a triggering event. Here are the three main events. terminal illness, chronic illness, critical illness. Terminal illness means you have less than 24 months left to live. The doctor has declared you are terminal. You're going to pass away. I'm sorry, Mr. Client. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Okay? Chronic illnesses, hang on. Okay. Chronic illnesses, you can write chronic illness and then right next to chronic illness, write long-term care. What exactly is a chronic illness? A chronic illness is when you need a nurse to take care of you. You need a nurse to take care of you because you cannot perform what's called acts of daily living, ADLs. What exactly are the acts of daily living? Dressing yourself, feeding yourself, using the bathroom, transferring yourself from one location to another, right? Cognitive decisions like Alzheimer's and dementias are triggers. Those types of things. So think about my dad. My dad wasn't terminal, but my dad was bedridden. My dad was wheelchair ridden. He needed assistance with all these things. That's where he qualified. That one benefit, that's where my dad qualified if he would have had this type of insurance. By the way, my dad had life insurance, but it just didn't have living benefits. Anybody want to guess what company that was? It's a company that I love to replace constantly because I can put my client in a much better position. The company's name is Primerica. Primerica's life insurance policies do not have all of these living benefits. Primerica calls it Accelerated Benefit Rider, ABRs. The only thing Primerica has is terminal. They have terminal, okay? They do have terminal and the person has to have less than 6 months left to live, not 24 months. But they don't have chronic or critical. Chronic, long-term care. Critical is if you develop, well, let's read it. In 2016, nearly 800,000 Americans between the ages of 35 to 64 were hospitalized. It's not only older Americans who are susceptible to critical illnesses, as younger people also suffer from cancers, heart attacks, and strokes, okay? Whether you are old or young, the same issues can arise. You can become unable to work full-time, require family members to miss work to provide care, and face astronomical medical bills. Where will the help come from? That's what critical illnesses cover. There's a list of them. We're going to go over them today of conditions that if your client gets these conditions and they meet an elimination period, most companies' elimination period is 90 days. So they have to be, the heart attack can't be like a minor heart attack, I'm back to work next week, because that happens nowadays. No, it's got to be a major heart attack that takes you out for at least 3 months, and you get access to this money while you're alive. Those are called critical illnesses. Let me tell you how much my dad reminds me of this business, okay? My dad's car accident was when he was 37. I believe he was 37. Right? Yeah. My dad at 40 years of age had a heart attack, had his first heart attack. And he had a stent put in his arm to his heart to open up his arteries. Why? Because my dad was a smoker. And my dad's bloodline also has a high buildup of calcium. So his arteries were clogged and the smoking enhanced it. At 40, he had a heart attack. At 41, my dad had his arteries replaced from his knees to his heart. All his arteries were like rubber hosing. My dad without a shirt looks like Frankenstein. It looks like a bunch of zippers everywhere. I was at 41. My dad at 42 had a double bypass on his heart. It took all three of those occurrences, four. It took all three of those occurrences for my dad to finally make a decision to quit smoking. That's what it took. And it's crazy because really what it was my son. I remember the doctor grabbed my son from my arms when my dad was in the hospital about to have double bypass, brought him up to my dad and said to my dad this, he said, if you want to see this kid turn 5 years of age and go to school, you'll quit smoking. If not, there's a guarantee that you're going to be dead by the time he turns 5. That was just three years from happening. My son, I think, was 2 when that happened. This is what critical illnesses cover. You got to learn these types of stories. Now, if you have your own story, guys, use your stories. Your stories are going to help you get more emotional about it than anybody else. Nobody will get more emotional about my dad's story other than me, my brother, my sister, and my mother. because we went through it, we lived it. But if you don't have a story, take mine. If you don't have a story, take my story. Because you got to get people to take action, and it's got to be emotional. It's got to be an emotional decision. So let's keep going. Come on now. You know you want to. Okay, here we go. Wait, why is that in Spanish? Has it been in Spanish? It wasn't in Spanish originally. What the hell? Hang on. I think I opened up another one by mistake. You guys can still see the screen, right? Okay, good. All right, here we go. All right, so what are the qualifying events for a critical illness? These right here. Look at the list of them. A heart attack, a stroke, evasive cancer. This I like, cancer of any kind. You sometimes come across clients who say they have a cancer policy. 90% of them are going to be with Aflac. Aflac cancer policies, unless they've changed it, but from every time I've ever looked at it, do not cover skin cancer. So it's not, it's not all cancers. This is evasive cancer, any kind of cancer. End-stage renal failure, major organ transplant, ALS, blindness, paralysis. Paralysis, think about car accidents when people get paralyzed. My ex-wife, when she was 19 years of age, I wasn't with her during the time, had a car accident where she was T-boned and she broke her lower back. And when she broke her lower back, she lost all sensation from her waist down. She was paralyzed for almost 2 years before she went through rehab and such to stand up again and get moving. Paralysis. Arterial, and I have no idea what that last word is. Y'all can just look at it, write it down, do what you need to do with it. Central nervous system tumors. Severe disease of any organ resulting in significant altered life expectancy. Major burns. Third-degree burns of 40% or higher of your body. Loss of a limb. Right? So don't confuse this with disability insurance. For example, you work as let's say a Comcast technician, you got to go to people's houses and install cable, and you break your leg from a bad, weekend of playing football with the boys, and you're out of commission for a while. That's a disability claim, right? You got to file a disability claim. You can't do your job. That's not a living benefit claim. Okay? The other thing you have to understand is the difference between how disability insurance pays versus how this pays. Because that's something else some people will tell you. They're going to tell you, I have disability insurance. Okay. Disability insurance replaces your paycheck, and only 40% of it. This doesn't replace your paycheck. This gives you lump sum money up front to do what you wish with. So if you got let's say $500,000 of insurance and you can get $100,000, you're going to get $100,000 of a check in your hand, and you can do what you want with it. Pay the mortgage off, hire a nurse to take care of you, pay your your medical bills, pay your living expenses. Oh, but I have health insurance. Good. Let the health insurance pay your health expenses. This could pay your living expenses like the mortgage, the electric, the water, right? If your kids are going through, trauma, my brother and sister went through PTSD because of my dad's accident. And you need to get a therapist to come talk to them, and, or maybe you need to just get the hell out of Dodge, get out of town and just, take a 3 or 4 day vacation. You need the money to do that. I'm not saying that the recovery process doesn't suck. Guys, I'm not telling you that if we would have had a boatload of money in our hands that it wouldn't have been painful seeing my dad recover. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying not having to worry about the finances could have really made it a lot easier for us to focus on what was important, which is my dad's recovery. My dad could have probably recovered a hell of a lot faster if he wasn't going through the stresses of trying to figure out how he was still going to be the man of the house, paying the bills while being doped up on morphine and in a wheelchair. It's a whole different ballgame when you don't got money weighing over your shoulders. It's a whole different ballgame when my mom doesn't have to be my dad's nurse, when she can actually be the supervisor of the nurse, and she could still be her husband. She could still be his wife. That's a different conversation to have, right? Irv, you have adult children, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Right? Like, you would want your kids to still be your kids if you went through an event like that rather than have to be the one wiping your butt, right?
Affirmative.
That's what living benefit does. It allows them to still be in their role without having to assume the role of your caregiver. Not that they won't take it. They'll gladly do it. My mother, you didn't have to ask my mother twice to take care of my dad. You didn't have to ask us twice to take care of him. But if we would have had something like this, it would have been nice to know that we didn't have to be the actual people there, you know, doing that care, because we knew if we could have afforded, we would have preferred more professional help that knew how to do it better than we did. I'm sure my mom busted him up along the way, you know, sometimes probably intentional because she was just, you know, wanted to choke the life out of him. I'll tell you one thing, my mom did take advantage of this. My dad's known for being a hoarder. My dad has a garage and he just freaking stockpiles stuff. My mom took advantage of that like no other. That man was doped up on morphine. She was like, you don't want this anymore, right? No, you don't want this anymore, right? She talks about it all the time. But guys, become good storytellers. I just gave you the facts. I've been at this company now for 4 years. This isn't my first rodeo selling living benefits, but within PHP, I have told the story of my dad and told the story of living benefits and what it does from a storytelling standpoint 1,000,000 times more than the technical facts that I just gave you now. The facts are meant to boost your self-esteem so that you have a grasp of it. But this is not the story you're telling. You're not going to go down a list of things like this. You're going to bore your client. You got to tell the story. Tell the story. You got to get good at telling stories. You have to. Stories will move people into action. It will. For those of you that know, for example, look, when I first came into this company, I came in with a significant other. I came in with a woman by the name of Lady Reyes. She was a registered nurse, worked 2 jobs nursing, single mom, 3 kids, right? After 6 months of being in this company, Patrick, the CEO of the company, invited us to attend an event at a freaking enormous castle, an enormous sized castle in Long Island, the biggest castle in the United States. If you look up a video from Romeo Santos y Juan Luis Guerra, they do the video in this castle. It's the largest castle in the United States. And in that castle, he disclosed to a handful of people, there were 20 people, 20 couples, I was one of them. He disclosed the fact that he was going to be giving equity of this company away. This was 2016 when this happened. He was going to do 3 years of equity, 2017, 2018, 2019. He called it Equity 54. Because if you add 17, 18, and 19 together, it equals 54. And for 3 years, we had a chance to fight to own a piece of this company. Own a piece of this company. At the time, the company was nothing, 2,500 people. Now it's the 3rd largest in the United States. I'm freaking proud of that. You know, we fought hard and qualified for all 3 years. I'm one of the top 20 equity shareholders in the company. But Patrick sold her that dream. She quit nursing, completely quit nursing. This someone was a nurse for 8 years, went to school for this, was already making 6 figures. She didn't quit for the money. She quit because she wanted to buy back time. She got tired of working 7 days a week, never seeing her kids, never any of that. So she quit and came into this industry, scared out of her mind, not knowing a single thing about insurance, a single thing about finances, not knowing any of it. But she was willing to fall forward because of the opportunity that presented itself, because opportunities like this don't come all the time. I tell you this story, again, I'm storytelling. You see what I'm doing? If you never knew her, I'm building in your mind a personality of who she is. Does that make sense? That's an emotional connection. 36-year-old woman, 3 kids, single mom. Why did I tell you this story? Because 2 years ago, she passed away in a car accident. 2 years ago, she passed away in a car accident. About 20 minutes after dinner and like a block and a half away from our house. All right? So that story is important to tell the 30-something-year-old woman who has 2 or 3 kids, who doesn't have insurance. Why don't you have insurance? Don't tell me it can't happen to you if it just happened to her. She left behind 3 kids. Unexpectedly. This wasn't medical related. This wasn't, oh, she's going to have enough time to say goodbye to her friends and family. No, this was one moment to the next. One moment to the next. One moment to the next. You guys got to use those stories because those stories will motivate people into action. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, if your moral compass is kind of coming on, you're like, well, man, I don't know if I want to tell that story because it sounds like I'm profiting off that story and da, 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 da. Listen, get that out of your head. You're not trying to sell somebody a fancy car. You're selling somebody insurance protection. I got no problem whatsoever. I have no problem whatsoever telling a story to a husband and wife if it means that I can look at the kids in the face and say, hey, if something happens, I'm going to be knocking back on your door and I'm going to be delivering a check that's going to help you get to college. It's going to help you start up your business. It's going to help you grieve the right way without having to worry about the finances. Because guess what? I know what it is to be the oldest of three, worried about the finances because mom and dad, not that they didn't want to be prepared, but they're immigrants that came to this country, didn't know anything about finances, and they had no choice but to not be prepared. I have no problem in convening people of that. None. You want another story? Eddie Tragus. Eddie Tragus came into my company December 31st of 2018. He came into my company. He was a 54-year-old man living in West Palm Beach. Okay, he used to be a musician, and he worked IT, but his passion was music. He had an adult daughter as well. All his kids were grown, single dad. He came into the company December 31st. January, he came to one of our convention events. He quit his IT job and came to work with me full time, because he had 6 months worth of reserves put away. If you're going to come work with me full time, you either have experience, you can show that you're making money with us, or you got 6 months worth of reserves. That's my rule. He showed me he had 6 months reserves. He quit. And then in February, I said to him this. I said, listen, you need to get an insurance policy. He says, no, I can't right now. I said, why not? He says, because I just quit my job. I'm living on my reserves. I want to keep my expenses down. I said, absolutely not. I said, listen, insurance costs what? $50, $60? There's no way. Go eat out less. Go have your coffee at home and not in Starbucks. But $60, you're blowing through it somewhere, anywhere, at least once a week. You're telling me you're not going to have insurance coverage? There's absolutely no way. I got him insured. I got him covered. His policy got approved on a Tuesday. Thursday of that week, he died of a heart attack. Thursday of that week, he died of a heart attack. Thursday of that week. Look, let me show you.
Wow. This
is my closing binder. When we weren't on quarantine, right? This is what I would bring with me to meetings. Look what I carried with me. That's Eddie Tragus. That's Eddie Tragus. I don't know if any of you guys ever met Eddie. Irvin, you didn't meet Irvin. You didn't meet him. That's Eddie Tragus. Right? I carry it here because it's a reminder. Like you never know when your time is. You never know when God's going to call you home. And guess what? When I'm talking to a 54-year-old man or a 50-year-old man and he says, I don't need insurance, guess what his story does? His story motivates him and reminds him. Because we know what a 50-something-year-old man is going to tell you. My kids are already grown. They're good. They're fine. No problem. Right? But this 54-year-old man, when he passed away, it wasn't the children who suffered as much. He's 100% right. It wasn't the children who suffered as much. You know who suffered? His parents. A lot of people don't think about that because you think, oh, he's a 50-something-year-old man. Guys, a parent is a parent is a parent no matter what, forever and ever and ever, no matter how old your kids are. A parent should never have to put their kids 6 feet under. Do you know the trauma that his mom is still to this day going through at the fact that she had to bury her son? She also had to bury her daughter a couple years back from an overdose. So mom and dad lost both their kids. And mom and dad saw both their kids be born, live lives, and die. A parent should never have to see that. So don't you think that money, that check that I was able to write to the family is beneficial to mom and dad who are going through that therapy, who are needing to go through that counseling, who are needing to get the hell out of Dodge? Right? I mean, don't you think that the $100,000 or so that the daughter received, his daughter's in his 30s. I still talk to her to this day and check up on her from time to time. That money, if used properly, could really change the course of their lives forever. And maybe his grandkids that aren't even born yet, change their course of life forever. Forever. So learn these stories because they matter. Yes, it's important to know the specs, the ins and outs of how living benefit insurance works, but knowing the power of the stories that these can do is even more important. You know, when I explain living benefit, let me hang on a second. Bam, here we go. When I explain living benefit, I go, listen, this is going to protect you against cancer, stroke, heart attack, or any kind of organ transplant, and a list of other things. That's exactly how I explain it. Cancer, stroke, heart attack, organ transplant, or a list of any other things. You can't work because of these conditions. You're in the hospital because of these conditions, and it's over a 90-day period. This is going to give you money that you can use for whatever you need. The mortgage, the electric, whatever you need, you're covered. You guys need to have the confidence in knowing our product lines have this. Our product lines have this. Mutual of Omaha has this. American National has this. Foresters has this. Those are my top 3 insurance carriers that I'm saying. AIG has this, right? Like, that's powerful. That's powerful. Now, let me give you a list of companies that don't have it, because you're going to come across these companies. When you want to start marketing campaigns, go ask your friends and family, see if they've got this company. You ready? Northwestern Mutual does not have it. They don't have living benefits. New York Life does not have living benefits. Doesn't have living benefits. Okay? Primerica, no living benefits other than terminal illness rider. And by the way, the other 2 companies also have terminal illness rider. Terminal illness rider is like a standard for almost every insurance company. Okay, the Primerica guys love to say, we do have living benefits. Wait, okay, fine. You want to be technical? Let's be technical. You have terminal, less than 6 months, no more than 40% of your insurance. I'm not talking about terminal. I'm talking about what if you're not terminal? What if you get cancer? You can recover from it, but you're out of commission for a while because of chemotherapy. Anybody here ever had a really bad flu? Like a really bad, nasty flu where you're throwing up, fever, vomiting, you know, colds, the cough, congestion. We've all had that. Come on, right?
Jerlin did.
Okay. Now imagine having that for 6 months, because that's what chemotherapy does to you. That's what radiation treatment does to you. It makes you feel like that for 6 months. You ever had like a really bad headache? How the hell are you going to go to work through something like that? Living benefits. Anyways, Northwestern Mutual doesn't have it. New York Life doesn't have it. State Farm doesn't have it. Primerica doesn't have living benefits. I'm trying to think. What other companies don't have it? Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's it. And that I can think of. I'm sure there's other companies as well, but those are the ones that I know for sure don't have living benefits. Mass Mutual doesn't have it. Mass Mutual doesn't have it. Ohio National doesn't have it. They don't have living benefits. And if you ever come across a client with an insurance policy, the conversation you're going to have with them is this. Number 1, congratulations for having coverage in place. Not many don't. Number 2, when's the last time you had it reviewed? And have you taken advantage of the upgrades? When you tell somebody, have you taken advantage of your upgrades? What's the first thing they're thinking? Wait, what upgrades? I want my upgrades. Well, let's take a look at your insurance and see if you qualify for upgrades. That gives you a chance to take a look at what they have. I can't tell somebody if I have something better or worse until I have something to compare it against. And there's nothing better than the black and white validating your sale. When you can look at their policy and go, look, boom, 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 compared to what I have, boom, 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 what do you want to do? What makes sense? What makes sense? Like the facts tell and stories sell. I'm going to story sell, but look at the facts. It's in black and white. I'm not lying to you. You get what I'm saying? I'm not lying to you. There it is. Here's another company. Has living benefits, but a very weak living benefit, Transamerica. They have living benefits, but it's a very weak living benefit compared to ours. Very weak. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you an example. You get a $500,000 worth of life insurance with Transamerica. $500,000 worth of life insurance with American National, right? You get a living benefit need, cancer, as an example. You qualify for $100,000 of money out of your $500,000. You follow? Pretty simple explanation. If you take $100,000 from Anaco's policy, your insurance is going to drop to $400,000. That's logical. You have a Transamerica policy at $500,000 and you take $100,000 worth of money for living benefit, your insurance drops to $65,000. Damn, that's not a dollar for dollar reduction. That might get your client to second guess whether they want to take the living benefits because they're so worried about dying and not leaving family behind with enough money. But you need to know those things. And you know what I do with Transamerica? No lie. I tell the client, go, listen, let's get on a 3-way call. I'll prove it to you. Let's call Transamerica. You and me together. We'll call them. Let them tell you. So you got to know those types of things. Be proud, guys, of what we have. We got 30-something companies, some of the best companies in the market space. Some of the best companies in the market space, some of the best benefits that I've ever seen, guys. Foresters, you know, you can call it living benefits. I call it member benefits. Look at Foresters. Watch this. I'm going to use Heraldo as an example. Heraldo's married to my cousin Jolene, right? They have a baby. Boom. If they both have Foresters life insurance policies together, and heaven forbid, something happens to both of them, not one, both of them pass away, their kids are going to get the money, the insurance money, but their kids are also going to get $900 a month per child until each child is 18 years of age. That's called an orphan benefit. That's automatic. So you mean to tell me the kid's going to get all the insurance money plus $900 a month until they're 18? Yes. Up to 9 kids. I don't know if you plan to have that many kids in that, but up to 9 kids. It's an automatic. They get orphan scholarship programs. There's a natural disaster benefit into their insurance where if you go through a hurricane or an earthquake or a natural disaster, the insurance company gives you money as well. There's an accidental insurance as well. So if you got $500,000 of insurance and your death was because of an accident, you get the $500,000 plus an additional $300,000 instead on top. You get a legal service. If you want to get like a will or a trust created, Foresters will give you access to legal services so you can create your wills and your trusts. Like, holy crap, all of these extra benefits. And a lot of the times when I come across a client who's paying whatever amount from another competitive company, I can get them the same insurance with all of those benefits for the same price that they're paying. This is why I love coming across people who have insurance. I don't replace all of them, but I will compare every one of them and see if it makes sense to do it. Does it make sense to do? Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, let's do this real quick. It's 11:10 on my clock. At 12 o'clock, we have the BOM. I want to give a marketing training, but I don't need to give that long of a training. I probably only need about 30 minutes. So let's get back on at,
looks like the car that we just
let's get back on at 11:30. Let's do a 20-minute break.
Yeah, that car was sweet.
Okay.
I would if that thing was manual, I would have went inside already.
You good, Eddie? You talking about a manual car and this and that? Let's get back on at 11:30. Okay, same link, no problem. If you're Central Time, it's 10:30. We'll go for about 30 minutes, and then at 12 o'clock, we'll get ready for our BOM presentation. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye.